President Biden suggested last night that his administration might implement a new windfall tax on oil and gas companies. Let's watch.
I think they have a responsibility to act in the interest of their consumers, their community, and their country. To invest in America by increasing production and refining capacity, because they don't want to do that. They have the opportunity to do that. Lowering prices for consumers at the pump. You know, if they don't, they're going to pay a higher tax on their excess profits and face other restrictions. My team will work with Congress to look at these options that are available to us and others. It's time for these companies to stop war profiteering, meet their responsibilities to this country, and give the American people a break and still do very well.
In this brief address, as we heard, Biden blasted big oil for war profiteering and withholding domestic production, even as they get rich off of record profits. Biden warned these companies that if they don't direct more of their huge profits to lowering the price at the pump for consumers, there could be a price to pay. Now, as some background, the House Democrats passed a bill earlier this year to do exactly this. Katie Porter, a California representative, has been leading the charge on these kind of issues. She made a statement at the time saying, "I'm a proud capitalist, and what we're experiencing with fuel prices is the result of a broken market." Big oil executives are bragging to shareholders about price gouging families at the pump. They're purposefully keeping supply low to earn record profits, squeezing families and our entire economy in the process. I'm glad my House colleagues agree. And just a couple of numbers on this. With that statement, the industry was sitting on more than 9,000 approved but unused drilling permits on 13.9 million acres of U.S. public lands, and have seen some of the biggest companies, Shell being one of them, had a record-breaking $9.1 billion in quarterly profit, an amount nearly triple their $3.2 billion they had earned the year before. So the accusations of price gouging are not coming out of nowhere. Some of the richest companies in the world have tripled their profit at the same time that Americans are struggling to get back and forth to work. Do you think this is a good policy decision here?
This isn't the way I would handle the policy, but let's get rid of all their subsidies then. Let's get the massive subsidies that the U.S. government gives to oil and gas companies. Yeah, get rid of them. And then they can use some of these excess profits they have to pick up the slack for all the favorable treatment they give with the government. I generally think that's a better way rather than confiscate the wealth of companies after they earn it. And this seems to be the way many Democrats, or in particular the Biden administration, seems to want to do. Yeah, we're going to give industries, sectors of the economy, all these breaks, all these advantages, all this help. Then we're just going to hope, and then we're going to do that. I mean, the airline industry was the same thing. Here's all this stuff we're going to give you, and then, right, you're not going to lay off the pilots, right? You're going to keep everything running smoothly. Yeah. And then the industries, responding to just kind of various business forces, say, no, we're going to take all that, thank you, and then we're going to do whatever we're going to do anyway. So we should just stop giving them those benefits and those rewards, and picking winners and losers and all that sort of. So that's how I would handle it. You're right. I take the leftist point that it's not all the competition out there is not all fair. Some of the, and in large part, in many cases, because of what the government's own policies have been. So I would do that. Yeah,
I'm not sure why they take one approach or not the other. It does seem like fossil fuels received $5.9 trillion in subsidies in 2020. Yeah, so it certainly seems like there were enough subsidies to kind of have the same effect for and back. And it was when he first started raising this, I thought, well, maybe the subsidies aren't as big as the profits.
They are vast.
But they are.
They are
they
vast.
are apparently vast. So it's not. We should look into more. Look more into what the rationale is by taking this approach rather than a different approach. But it seems like this particular plan, in the absence of a Republican-backed plan to actually address the subsidies, it will be a hard one to argue against. And given that it has been on the table for so long, I'm a little curious why Joe Biden hasn't banged this drum earlier.
Well, I will say, I'm listening to his remarks there, and he says he thinks those companies have a responsibility to bring down their gas prices. Well, does the U.S. government have a responsibility to help make gas more affordable for people? It falls to these companies that are, let's take it from the leftist perspective. No, they're greedy capitalists just trying to make money, and I'm somehow expecting them to behave differently. But my own administration's policies are ensuring that gas prices are going to remain high for all this.
Well, what policies?
Well, all of the screwing up with then he's accusing them of war profiteering. Why is there a war going on? Because we're sending millions and millions and millions of dollars to Ukraine.
Sure. But I do think those are a little bit mixed issues here. The idea is Biden has tried to implement other policies. To his credit, they don't go far enough, and they're not. I think that he has oversold them to the American people given how marginal they are. But he has tried to do things like open up strategic oil reserves, et cetera, to try to bring down the prices at the pump.
What about the pipelines, the drilling, the better relations with Venezuela, Saudi Arabia? He's done some of those things.
He's done those things. And again, as a leftist, I don't like a lot of those things, but he definitely has been prioritizing.
He's done more than you want, not as much as many people would want.
To bring down the prices. But this one I think is good for political reasons, because at the end of the day, it is a small number of companies that have this control that antitrust is supposed to be addressing, this monopoly control and being able to raise prices. There were these huge gaps between the price of oil by barrel and the price of oil at the pump, and everyone could see it with their own eyes. So whereas I think some of the price gouging arguments seem kind of socialistic and woo-woo to some people in other contexts, this was one that was square on the money. So we'll see if it's too late.
But you do understand, like, the backwardness of saying we're going to subsidize and assist and favor your industry to the tune of trillions of dollars. Yeah. And then later we're going to be upset when you make too much money.
Yeah, I have no issue with that at all. I mean, look, I do think that some of the subsidy, I think some of the money goes to doing things like financing drilling projects and allowing them to do the infrastructural things that allow them to access the fuel.
They can get a loan like everybody else. How about that?
All right, you heard it here first from Robby Soave.
Meanwhile, President Biden has been touting his record on gas, claiming that he's helped bring prices down from what he says averaged $5 a gallon when he took office.
But fact checkers have debunked this claim. Gas prices hovered at $2.39 per gallon when he took office, and it's averaging $3.76 today.
The good old days.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this. Obviously, I'm sure the Biden administration was picking some number that was true in some place, and the people who are fact checking this, I think it's a little bit of like a gotcha.
Did the Facebook fact checkers spring into action? Disinformation alert! Everyone, stop what you're doing. There is disinformation.
Right. I mean, like the point is that Biden
Homeland
is
Security
wrong.
must know. We must alert. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I think that people who are pushing back against Biden's numbers are right insofar as there is always a number that an administration could point to tell you that everything is fine. And no one ever wants to hear it because the base level of normalcy in America is that people aren't feeling fine. Even if the arc is going a little bit in the right direction at one point or another, it's all a drop in the bucket. So I think that any time an administration says, well, why aren't you patting me on the back for doing a good enough job, they're going to sound bad. And it's not because the numbers are bad on the pump. It's because the economy is bad and people have been suffering, especially through the pandemic, but honestly for a long time before that.
Well, we'll have more Rising right after these messages. Stay tuned.